Welcome to another edition of Table Talk. I am your host, Matt Gingrich, and today I am joined by a candidate for the 47th District of the House of Representatives in Washington State, a current city council member for the city of Covington, Mr. Joseph Cimaomo. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Matt. How you doing today?
Oh, hanging in there. How is COVID quarantine going?
I kind of miss going out and hanging out with everybody. I'm sure if this wasn't, I'd be there in the room with you having this discussion, and it'd be a little different.
Yeah.
So I kind of miss that. I do miss getting out there and talking with people and actually being outside. I miss going into the office for work, man. I never thought I'd say that. I always thought working from home, that's gonna be great.
I'm not sure how much I miss being outside. We go outside. We have a big yard, when we're able to do that type of stuff.
Yep.
But this has been my dream. you know how many Saturday, Sundays that, after working all week long, I just want to sit in the house. I just want to chill. I want to watch TV. These are my days off. I don't want to be any more busy than I have to. And my wife's constantly like, I work from home, because that's what she works from home normally. And so she's like, I work from home. I got to get out of here. We got to go do something. I don't care what we do. We got to go do something. I'm like, can I just watch TV? I'm like, it's my days off.
Yeah.
So right now, and then what's getting me through is I constantly think that I know the day we get let out, I won't be in the house for 3 months straight.
Yeah.
She's going to want to take me everywhere. So it hasn't been all that bad for me. I do want to let everybody know, because we are going to talk your politics, that Joe and I have known each other, going on close to 10 years now, if you think about that.
Yeah, it's getting there.
We are friends, but we are friends with varying viewpoints, especially when it comes to politics. Joe is running as a Republican. I don't belong to either party. I belong to one that hasn't been formed yet, called the Common Sense Party, where I think both sides have good ideas and both sides are completely off their rockers and others. And so I am going to hit you with tough questions. We're not going to powder puff this for you.
Wouldn't be a discussion of politics with you if you didn't.
I don't know if whoever you're running against, because isn't it by law that if he wanted to and contacted me, I'd have to give him equal airtime?
Correct.
That
well,
is.
I don't know if I don't know if that's the law. I'd have to look that up. But
it used to be, because when I was in college and took broadcast law, that was one of the. Now I don't know if it ran down as far as small as state House of Representatives, but I know federally, United States government, senators, all that stuff, they had to have equal. You had to at least afford them the opportunity to have equal airtime.
You can make the offer and they can decline.
Correct. Now, I wouldn't have to make the offer. They would have to come, I could give you 20 hours, blah, 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 and not have to say a word to them. But if they caught wind of it and came to me and said, no, I want 20 hours too, I would then be required to give it to them. So, all right. So right now, I think the first thing I want to jump into, because it's just, we're all living it. Hell, we discussed it right off the top of the show, is you have somebody from your party and somebody not in your party taking over the COVID response. What is your reaction? Let's start first just locally here in our states. I mean, that'll be the offices you'll be working with and in.
Mm-hmm.
What is your response to Governor Jay Inslee's response to COVID-19?
I think he did some things right, and I think he did some things wrong. I'm gonna give him credit where he did the things right. I think the asking for social distancing, talking with businesses, and getting them to do the right thing, asking for a response from the citizens to go out. If they don't need to go out, don't go out. And people, I don't know if it's a healthy fear or if it's a just wanting to honor the request of the governor, are respecting that a lot. I think his ideas on flattening the curve are working well. I had a council meeting 2 weeks ago where King County council member gave an update to us, and he showed us some statistics of how social distancing worked with the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. 1918.
18's when it started, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of the Black Sox scandal for a second there. But it was showing how, everything was going good. We thought everything was done. It rebounded in the fall, but that's also the start of flu season. So I don't know where that was, but I think he's done some good things in asking and doing that. Where I think he's gone wrong is I don't think he's giving us the information we need to restart as a whole, as a state, where we're just, okay, give us some more information. Give us a date of when you're going to start loosening all of the restrictions. We all know May 4th in Washington is when the stay-at-home order is going to end. But he's saying, well, we're going to be maintaining that past May 4th. Well, how much longer? Give us a time frame. Give us a date. Give us some information on how we're actually planning to restart the economy, because people are hurting, and that's where it's going. Is, can we reopen some of these businesses that are doing the right things? Give us some, minimum amount of people per square foot that you can have in there. Give us some of those ideas, and I feel that's where he's lacking in his calls for the COVID response.
I will agree with you that a lot of his media days, or whatever you want to call them, have been have been completely worthless. There's no answers.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched him today, as a matter of fact, when I watch him, I get angry because, like you and everybody else, I think wanting answers is a bipartisan thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where it becomes a partisan. If he gives an answer, let's say he goes June 15th now, boom, you're going to have one side of the aisle lose their mind, and not even with thinking about it. Like, even if they thought about it and went, yeah, June 15th sounds like a good day, that makes sense, it's because somebody against on the other side of the aisle is telling them what to do, which is where a lot of this has come down. And you would have it no matter which way you went.
Yeah, and I agree. I was talking with someone about this, that as much as we want to have a healthy society, we want to. I don't want to flatten the curve. I want no curve. I want it to be done. I want zero. That's what I would like. But we all know that viruses, you never truly are at zero with a virus, but as close to zero as we can, where we're not getting new cases, where we're not experiencing deaths from COVID. I would like to see that. I would like to see us where that, and we have a steady rise in days without.
Yeah, but that's a dream for fairyland that we can't.
It is.
I mean, like you said, people are hurting. You can't afford to live in that world, because you just said it yourself. The flu virus has never disappeared.
Correct.
And every year we come up with a brand new vaccine for it, a new strain, whatever, and it mutates.
Mm-hmm.
And from the early studies of this has 30 mutations already. So that's going to be tough to do. The other problem I see with giving definitive answers at this moment, like my initial, like I said, when I watch it, my reaction, I'm angry. I want answers.
Yep.
And then when you step back and you think about it, the one thing I agree that he is doing, which makes it tough to give specific definitive answers, is allowing the science to dictate. He's waiting on medical information from, I believe it's the UW clinic right now that's doing it for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he's taken in the other information from different medical fields as well, but the UW ones kind of seem to be the one he's riding.
Yeah.
And you can't always get those numbers in. You know, the goal was put on by the president. The goal was 14 days of the curve either flat or dropping. No state has done that yet.
No.
And so for technically by governor, president, all superior, nobody should even be attempting to open to this weekend or next Monday or whatever the case may be.
No, I agree that there's a lot of the science that's not telling us, giving us the answers we want. And that's what science does, is it doesn't give you the answers you want. It gives you the answers that are true. But my philosophy on this is we have to look at more than just what UW's telling us. I know Stanford's saying a completely different thing. And I'm sure universities or places that are doing these testing on the East Coast are telling us completely other things too. And we need to find out which one's going right. Now, it could be based on location. It could be based on the test subjects themselves. It could be based on just what they're seeing in that area. There's a multitude of factors that are going on. But what I would like to see the governor tell us is what we're doing right now has worked to flatten the curve. We're starting to ease restrictions, which he's been saying we're going to start to ease restrictions and we're going to phase it in. What I'd like him to do is not hold a press conference every day to tell us that he's going to give us another press conference and tell us nothing tomorrow. Because I did not catch today's press conference. I've read some snippets of it, but from what I've read, I missed that.
Nothing.
I missed nothing. But he's going to give us more information on Friday. It's like, well, then why hold the press conference today? Release a statement saying we're going to hold a big press conference on Friday, giving more information, and there we go.
100% agree. I actually brought that up to my wife. I said the only thing that came out today was the new medical charts. Mm-hmm. To me, in instances like that, allow the medical field to then hold the press conference. Just let them come out and say, hey, this is the new information that we have passed along. You guys look at it, and this has now been passed along. Inslee will make an announcement on it Friday. You don't need him there. Because to me, when you see the medical field, that's kind of your, I don't know, your information that you need or want to see. But it's information like when you see it from the medical field, you can only make your own assumptions. When I see somebody in power, a governor, president, whoever, that's who I want answers from. Right? Because physicians, medical experts, those people are sworn to a different oath than politicians. Their oath is they would be more in your court of they'd like to see zero for days before somebody, new cases or whatever, before they recommended opening up, where we just know that's not going to be the case.
Correct. And that's the tough thing, is that we're getting information from multiple different sources, and who's to say that the big issue is when we're asking for a plan statewide, when really we should be asking for a plan regionally for the state, because I have a feeling that the Tri-Cities will be able to do something sooner than, say, the King County will.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the Tri-Cities just have a major outbreak in a Tyson food plant?
They did. They did. It was but what I'm saying is that there's a possibility that regionally in the state, you could possibly ease restrictions in a different area of the state than you can in a different area.
Here would be my problem with that. Let's say, let's just pick a town. Let's say Cooley City. Population, maybe 8,000 in that area total, between Cooley City, Electric City, Grand Cooley. Okay. So you pick a town like that. That place has campgrounds. That place has golf courses. That place has fishing. Right?
Yeah.
Now you take 60,000 people from King County who are mad and want to get out of the house, so they go there where it's legal. Now, I mean, the second that you give one city a leeway that city is going to be crowded with people in a city that does not have a leeway.
But you're also going to be punishing a city that hasn't had a case maybe for weeks, and they're saying, well, because Bellingham has had 7 cases in the last 6 days, we have to tell Cooley City that they can't do anything still.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like,
but you're part of the state.
Yeah.
They pay the same taxes.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we have to stagger in. I agree with, we have to phase in ways to reopen the state. There's certain things we need to do. I'm not certain that having closed down fishing was one of the things that we should have done. Most people are out there by themselves or with someone who's already living in their home out there fishing. I think that's something we could have left open.
Now, I get it, but I don't. So I'm not a fisherman, so it didn't affect me.
Yeah, I'm not a fisherman either.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. However, I drive by Lake Meridian every day for work. 6 o'clock in the morning. There's got to be 50 people on that dock fishing off the dock. There's no way 50 people fit on that dock 6 feet apart.
There's no way 50 people should be on that dock. No, that's the dock that was there 20 years ago. They've fixed it since then. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a newer dock, but I'm just saying. Yeah. And my assumption is Lake Meridian is not the only lake like that. It's the open. I mean, first of all, when he canceled fishing wasn't even open yet. It wasn't until last weekend when technically the fishing season opened that people started getting real mad about it. And now, would you agree that Washington had probably the strictest stay-home order because of the fishing? Because we were the only state that did that.
I would agree that we did. However, I think we closed down that type of recreation, that type of outdoor recreation. There are some states that kind of upped it. Hey, you can't be out here, period. We will send the police to come get you if that's the case. We've all seen the picture of the guy who was out surfing in California and the cops came and arrested him. But I think we had some strict because of that. I don't know why we had to be the strictest. Now I know we were the first to have deaths and we were the launching point of the COVID crisis in the United States. And I think it's just one of those times where we have to really kind of look at it and say, why did we do this, and hopefully there's not a pandemic like this again. But if there is, what can we improve upon this? And I think we need to learn that maybe some things like fishing, if you're doing it responsibly, which people, lining 50 people up on the dock at Lake Meridian isn't responsible at all, even in times when we're not in a pandemic.
But so, would you agree that my whole theory and thought, anyways, was March 16th is when the recommendation went into place. Inslee came out that morning and recommended everybody stay home, everybody do this. There was no order yet. It was just a recommendation. And that's also when you started seeing businesses close down, things like that. So what happened? Everybody flooded the parks. Now, my thought is that it takes a few bad eggs to ruin it for everybody. And when you're putting hundreds of people at Poo Poo Point, for instance, which on average during the week sees 20 hikers, now they got 300 hikers. I understood it from that regard, that we as adult human beings, just in general, could not follow simple rules or recommendations. So I feel like he had to drop the hammer.
And I'm going to disagree on that one, where I think closing certain aspects, like if you're at a public park, closing down the playground equipment is something we should do, because honestly, we've all been to a public park. We've seen what can happen on the playground equipment with the spread of germs. Period. We've seen that. We've all kind of lived that. We've both got small kids. We know that. But I think leaving trails open to allow people to go to maintain some type of exercise, leaving certain parks open would be okay, and just posting signs I know how well signs work sometimes, but just posting up, hey, this is what we want, this is what we recommend, this is how we should do it. And unfortunately, and
Did I lose you? Oh,
to their best abilities.
yeah. I man, I just got to continue disagreeing. Like, I know I'm fortunate. I have 8.5 acres. And I know with the way your city of Covington is growing, and my city is growing, Maple Valley area, not a lot of people have the yards to go walk. But what you guys have that I don't have are sidewalks. Like,
Hmm.
do you have to go to a walking trail to walk?
Well, for certain parts of the city, uh, we have a park in the city that we have about a quarter mile of trail on that we're hoping to expand with the in the county eventually. But we want to be able to use that. You're kind of out there in the middle of nice trees. It's kind of a forested area. It's got some good trails, and you can just walk around, walk your dog, walk it with your family, and there's no actual sidewalk near that area, so it's the place. There's also the Sioux Creek Trail that's right there on the border of Kent and Covington. That I mean, I know you've driven past it. You've probably been on it. That it goes for miles and miles, and people can stay socially distant on that trail. Now, yes, you're going to pass some people if they're riding a bike and you're jogging. You'll pass them. And you'll be within that 6 feet. And granted, I don't know how long that would be. It could be a brief split second. It could be 30 seconds that you're by each other. I'm not sure on that. That's where you just have to kind of take it where you're putting yourself at risk a little bit there. But you have to have some accountability for yourself as well. And we can't always mandate what they can and can't do on that.
But
My
you and I both know that we are entitled, privileged humans that think we can do what we want if we're not being watched. We've all, now, whether to what extreme, we've all done it. Every one of us, whether you're in school
Mhm.
and your buddy throws a spit wad at you and you're like, oh, I'm going to get him back. The teacher's got her back turned.
Yeah.
You know damn well you're doing wrong, but you do it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people were using these trails, and how I know is I saw pictures on Facebook because people are that just bold or whatever you want to say, but people were using these trails and these exercise moments to meet up, and
Yeah.
that defeats the whole purpose. And we run our police department or our public safety officials or whoever you want to say, we run them thin by having to babysit these places.
Yeah. Well, and my other worry is that we're asking people to not be out on the trails, being outside, being in public parks, doing these things. But I don't know if you've been to Walmart or Safeway, or I know you've been. I saw your post about Safeway a few weeks ago, so I
Get
saw.
me started.
Don't. But it's we can't go to these parks, but we got to go do our shopping or something. But we're packing ourselves into the box stores, and we're seeing the crowding that we would have had if we even had those trails open for a split second.
Now,
So
they were way behind the 8 ball. I think they've gotten better now by counting people and keeping it under a certain number. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that you're not, let's say they allow 50 people in the store at one time. That doesn't mean you're not going to have 40 of them on one aisle.
yeah,
I get that.
and I
Uh,
do know Walmart's breaking. Like if you're standing around the middle of something, Walmart is saying, "Hey guys, can you break it up a little bit? Not just blocking these aisles so people can't pass through. We're asking that you be a little bit farther apart." So I've seen that at a Walmart.
and I do believe all grocery stores. I'm not just bad mouthing Walmart or Safeway, QFC, Kroger, Fred Meyer, Costco. All of them, I think, were behind the 8 ball. I also think they got slammed in a time where you're typically slower
Mhm.
because everybody's paying their taxes and not sure how much extra money they have and things like that. I mean, retail is just, that's where we met, was working retail.
Mhm.
We both know from January 1st till April 15th, you're just kind of in a lull, you
Yeah,
know, it's the way
it's
of
one
the
of your
world.
slower times.
And then all of a sudden, bam, these stores are getting hit like crazy that they didn't have time to think of but still, I think they were way slow on being able to do the one-way aisles, the minimum amount of people in the store, closing one door, all those different things. But I also think food is a bigger necessity than a walking trail. I also think Monday through Friday, these kids are still in school. Why are we going to a park at 10 o'clock in the morning?
I know some school districts are a little bit behind on that. Being in school, some school districts are starting next week with their distance learning. Some of them have just been doing. These are recommended. They're not counted towards grades. Do them, don't do them. Those have been some options for the last month in some districts. And I know some districts said, well, we'll figure it out. And they've been doing the distance learning for the last couple of weeks. So it's about which school district you're in and where you can go for it. Now, I've been working. I start work at 7 a.m. I'm off at 3:30 every day. So I'm staying indoors the whole time. My farthest walk lately has been to the mailbox. I have walked. I do try to walk a little bit farther on sometimes. I've been playing catch outside in my front yard because I do have that type of space to play catch with my son. We all have to make some sorts of sacrifices in the time of a pandemic. I just wish that we could have maintained a level of service for the residents of the state and the residents of the 47th, where we could have kept some parks open. And I know Kent is reopening some parks and with some restrictions on them, and they're posting up what those restrictions are. They're sharing it all over social media and in their parks and on their trails. And I know Covington is discussing how we're going to do that as well.
Now, hypothetical completely, just my guess, just from what I've heard other places do, so on and so forth, is that a lot of these parks, the only part that's going to open are the walking trails, the bigger like grass fields. You're not going to have bathrooms open. You're not going to have playgrounds open. You're not going to have any of that. Now, hypothetically saying, let's say Covington decides on a similar situation. What are your recommendations to the rest of the city officials to police?
My recommendation is that we just continue to, well, in Covington, our biggest park is Covington Community Park. Well, we've closed the parking lots. We've got the gates up there. No one can pull in. They can't unlock them. They can't get in there. And maintain that closure of the parking lots for right now. But also to put up temporary fencing around playground equipment and quite possibly temporary fencing around restrooms. If that's a doable situation where we can get it easily and quickly. But I also would like to see us get the walking trails open, but have the signage put up at the starts of the trails and throughout the trail. You can put up a temporary sign throughout the trail. Yeah, probably going to get vandalized because that's what happens in there, but people are already using the trails even with caution tape around them.
Yeah.
So my suggestion would be that we put up these temporary signs and we just send one of the parks employees or even an officer on their lunch break just to go through and make sure nothing bad is happening. I'm not telling them to write fines for social distancing. I don't want that. I'm not just saying what we need to do is just make sure that nothing bad is happening there. No crimes are being committed. We're maintaining the distancing problems there. One second, my son's talking to me. No, I didn't lock you out of the house. I'm sorry if I did lock the door, though, while you were outside. I may have locked the door on them while they were outside playing.
Oh, my dream. My dream. So basically, you're going to leave them to self-policing. You don't want tickets written.
Correct.
Now, you brought up 1918, which boiled over into 1919 when the rebirth came back from the Spanish flu.
Mm-hmm.
And they fined people $5 for being outside. Fine them $5. That's how we got rid of it. So you would backtrack what history proved to work in hopes of people policing themselves.
I'm all for self accountability, and that's what I want us to do. I don't want to be finding people for being outside their homes. I don't want to find people for being in where they normally could go. I believe that we have to have some sort of self accountability.
How many speeders have ever showed up to the police department and said, "Give me a ticket, I was speeding"?
You tell me, because I believe the answer would be zero.
That's my guess too.
Unless we're talking about a Ned Flanders type person.
I understand your faith in humanity, but again, I believe you're off in La La Land because it's just not going to happen. Have you seen the video? I apologize because I'm not sure what state it happened in, of the mom who brought her kid to set a protest at a closed park, ripped everything off and just let the kids play.
I did not see that video, no.
And then they came in, they were really nice. They just said, "Hey, everybody's got to leave. We're not allowed to be here. This park is closed, blah, 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 blah." And she threw a big tizzy to the point where she finally got arrested.
I think I heard about it. I didn't see the video. I didn't read much stories on it. I saw it and just kept scrolling.
She was not a nice lady. I will tell you, the officer in question here, how he kept his cool, being called so many nasty things for just asking people to leave, was impressive. Because the first word out of her mouth, I would have lost it. But that's just how I deal with things. And then if you would have given me a baton, handcuffs, and a gun, there would have been some bad issues. There's a reason I'm not a cop. You know, I've got no self-control when I feel attacked. That's for sure. I think it would be unsafe. My personal opinion, it would be unsafe to send county officials there, like a Parks and Rec guy or whatever.
Yeah.
That person's not armed. Again, I don't have a whole lot of faith in humanity when you try to take something away from them.
Well, I'm not saying that we send them during the middle of the day where we know people are out there, but at the end of the day, to go through making sure nothing's been completely disturbed, maybe to replace the signs, making sure they're still there. That's where we send the parks department out there.
But if you don't send them during the day when people are there and they break ordinance by playing on the playgrounds and stuff like that, your curve that has now been flattened for just a couple days, not very long even, just a couple days, is, I would imagine, it would spike. Again, I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, I'm no, but just my imagination is if you throw a group of people at a park, boom, and then the hammer would have to come down again.
This is true. And
the point of opening slowly is so the hammer doesn't have to come down anymore at all. If we can do a little bit at a time.
And that's where my ideas for putting up temporary fencing around these areas, well, not a 100% guarantee, it is still better than putting just caution tape up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you need the signage, you need all that. But I honestly think, like, if I personally had a police force in Hobart, which doesn't have, I mean, it happens, but they're on horses and they're 90 years old. And they're the epitome of get off my lawn guys. They would scare me if I was at a park. But I mean, that would be to me why you would have to, as a taxpayer, I would want my taxes going towards the police department to police those areas.
And I believe that what we do is we have an emphasis patrol for those areas. You have the police on an everyday basis are traveling throughout the entire city, doing patrols, seeing where they are. And maybe what we do is we put emphasis and we say, hey, instead of just driving by this area 2 or 3 times while you're on patrol today, drive by 7 or 8. And then you have multiple officers doing the same thing throughout the area. With a city the size of Covington, you'll have 5 officers. You can have 5 different cars drive by, whether that be marked Covington cars or marked Sheriff's Deputy cars. With Kent, it's a little different because Kent is one of the largest cities in the state, and they're actually needing more police officers in Kent.
I don't doubt.
And those patrols, The problem right now with COVID and asking police officers to do it too right now is that a crime rate, while going a little lower, you're still having more commercial burglaries. You're still having more uh, high demand calls, which
Did
is
any of
where the
those guys
officer
turn
is going to.
themselves in?
Of course not.
Oh, I thought
No,
they were policing themselves.
we can't ask. To quote Ron White, you can't fix stupid. And I'm not saying people are being stupid. What I'm saying is that there are times where people do act stupidly, and when by doing so, that there are times where they're putting themselves or others in danger, and we need to ask them to. We've been asking them not to for generations. What we need to do is though enforce those the people who are acting stupidly, and that's where and by this I'm talking about the crimes that are being committed while we're having these times. We need to be having those police departments being able to get out there and working those calls. The demand calls are taking more time because there's times where it's residential, commercial, and commercial burglaries that are occurring, and people are noticing things that are happening more frequently. And that's where we're having some of these issues right now during COVID. What we need to do when it comes to spreading COVID is, yeah, we're lowering the curve, but we need to act responsibly for letting people back out into the world and not having the stay-at-home order. And by that is, doing that phase-in approach, which is slowly opening the trails, slowly opening up the parks, giving that the bigger spaces for people to be able to properly social distance. Now, I know that there are going to be people who take that as a time to, I have 4
Protest
people in
on a
my house.
Sunday at the government office.
Yeah, I know. I have 4 people in my house. You have 5. It's not saying that the 9 of us all get together for a game of wiffle ball at a park. It's, hey, we showed up at the same park. I'm staying 20 feet away from you and shouting, "Hey, Matt, how you doing?" That's far enough. Stay there, sort of thing. If we're at the same place at the same time.
But again, that's you. That's not.
That's not everybody. I know. It's not everybody.
And I'm not even sure it's the majority, especially the majority of your park goers. The people that are going to be going to these parks are the people that are struggling staying home anyways, that think it's a hoax or think that they're being bullied or that it's against their constitution, whatever their thought process is with this. But those are those people. So you're going to have a park full of those people.
Yeah. And unfortunately, right now, no matter what we do, we have to slowly phase things in. We can't maintain a stay-at-home order for the rest of 2020. We can't maintain it into 2021. So we need to find ways to phase this in. And as much as I want to say that we're going to have a flattened curve and everything's going to be fine during the summer, we all know that in a common flu season, that flu season starts in late fall, early winter, and rides through late spring or early spring. Is there a possibility COVID comes back in the fall? Yes, there is. And even no matter how much we try, we've been fighting strands of the Spanish flu since 1918. How long are we going to be fighting strands of COVID is the question. And we don't know, but we can't maintain a stay-at-home order because we can't maintain that stay-at-home order for the rest of the year because we're not sure. We have to start to phase in reopening the state, reopening the economy, reopening our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue that. I'm just not going to live that way. Just me personally.
Yeah.
I know I'm one of the fortunate ones. My wife already works from home. She's not hampered in any way. The company I work for is taking tremendous care of me currently. And I'm an essential worker.
Mm-hmm.
And my company has deemed it unessential for me to go out or anybody for them. So we've been fortunate in that regard. I did want to ask you real quick before we move into national, because I do want to get to the national aspect of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You brought up Kent, and we were talking about crimes. You were talking burglaries and stuff like that. There's been quite a few murders in Kent and surrounding areas. Now, I read a stat or saw a stat that as of Sunday, Miami, for the first time since I believe it was the late 40s, early 50s, something like that, had no murders in 7 weeks straight. What did they do right that we couldn't have that?
In all honesty, I do not know what Miami did for that. I'm
Because
not
Florida
familiar
was
with.
way behind on just the stay-at-home order stuff.
I'm not sure what occurred with Florida's stay-at-home order or what Miami is doing. I know that hearing in Burien and the White Center areas, we've had a few homicides in the last few weeks, and I don't know if you read the reason for one of them was because I felt like it.
Yeah.
I read that and I asked myself, where did we fail that person? Where did society fail that person? Where did that person fail himself? What happened in that person's life to think that was the right thing to do? But what they've done in Miami, I'm not sure. I'd have to look more deeper.
I just thought it was interesting. I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with their stay-at-home order. I just thought, like, for a place in over 70 years to have a murder every single week, went 7 straight weeks without one. You know, I kept looking after that. I'm like, what about Chicago? What about Chicago? Like, were they any better? And then finally, I'm going to fact check this with you because, as we know, social media, you're allowed to just spew whatever garbage you want.
Yeah.
How close were we to really letting Ridgway out of jail?
In all honesty, I don't think we were close at all.
I don't know if you've seen the meme, or not the meme, but the picture. There's a picture of 4 justices.
Yeah.
That said these 4 voted and we were 1 vote away from letting Ridgway out.
So what they were voting on was the order about releasing certain offenders out of prison to flatten the curve in the prison system for COVID. Not 100% sure why it went to the court. I was not paying that much attention. I thought it was the governor order, but someone may have sued and the Supreme Court ruled on it. But how close were we to letting Ridgway out? Man, I really don't know how close we were, but I don't think we were. I hope we weren't close at all. Now, could there have been some language in the original order that needed to be reworked before it should have gone out? Most likely, and that's the case with most orders like that.
Yeah.
But my philosophy on that is it should have been a case-by-case basis, looking at, when we let certain nonviolent offenders out, it's like, well, yeah, technically this crime was a nonviolent crime, but what was the crime? And what was the crime? Because from what I understood, some nonviolent offenders included child molesters.
Yeah.
And to me, that, you could say that's a nonviolent crime. They still need to
That's pretty violent.
That's pretty violent. If we're saying that we're releasing this guy who's been in prison for 60 years, he's 80 years old, he was in jail for murder. 80 years old, I'm fairly confident we can release him.
Yeah, life is life. And if you
life is life.
You die of COVID or you die of old age, I mean, life is life. Now I understand the guy who got caught with 14 grams of pot or 14 grams of cocaine, or because pot's now legal, but whatever the case may be, like, as long as it wasn't something like these major drug rings where they've got $40 million of meth.
Yeah.
Like that might be a little different story, but this guy who just had his crack pipe and his own rock, like, you're not going to cure that guy from smoking whether you hold him his whole sentence or not.
Yeah. But, and it's one of those things, again, it was a case-by-case basis. If the person was a child molester, no, we're not releasing them. If the person was, like you said, caught with simple possession of a controlled substance, okay.
Yeah. The other one that I heard was there was a guy, and a lot of the details elude me because I think I only remember the story just in a blip anyways, but I believe it was 6 years ago, 7 years ago up in Snohomish County, a guy, I think it was at the mall. I think it was the guy at the mall up there that shot and killed 6 people. The daughter of I believe it was the father who was shot, and the mother was shot and killed, and the dad was shot but survived.
Yeah.
Actually got a letter from whatever government official it was asking if they would mind if he was released or why you wouldn't want him to be released. And she made like this heartwarming video on Facebook and sent it out to the Maple Valley community page and stuff. And I just was curious how close these guys were really getting, or if this was, I'm trying not to use derogatory terms like right wingers.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
But that's what the majority of people who were like, keep everybody locked up to hell with them are right wingers. You know, how close, you know, if these guys were blowing it out of proportion.
You know, I'm not sure. Again, I'd have to go back and look at the order. But again, I think, in all honesty, what we need to do is we need to look at what their individuals, you know, are they up for parole to begin with? Let's start there. Are they up? What was their crime? Have they been a model inmate? You know, stuff like that. Those are things we should have been looking at, not just, oh, well, this is deemed non-violent, so let's use that.
Yeah.
No, we need to be looking at the actual things, and that's where I'm going from, and that's where I would go from it is let's look at each individual case. We're not going to release Gary Ridgway. We're not going to release a person who, you know, made an MS-13 member. We're not going to release people like that. We're going to keep. We need to make sure if we're going to release people, we're releasing the ones who are quote unquote deserving of it. You know, they've served their time. They're up for parole. Their crime was, like you said, simple possession, something like that.
But again, this kind of went back to, it kind of goes back to the self-policing, right? Because we've already had people rearrested that were released on the idea of COVID in the jails. There was a guy I believe it was Sunday night, who got in a high-speed chase with a cop in Pierce County and was rearrested with drugs and after leading cops on a pursuit.
And again, that's one of those things where we go back to, well, why were they released to begin with? What was their original crime? Who deemed that their crime was nonviolent? Who deemed that this person was eligible for this part? That's where we need to go back to it. There needs to be checks and balances. We all agree that checks and balances are a thing we need, and not just in life, but in our government. And by having those checks and balances, we're having someone go back and verify that this was the right move. Now, could this person have been a model citizen, a model inmate while they were there? Sure. But could this person have also been, you know, just one of those ones that got missed in the original order of nonviolent? You know, that could have been it too. I don't know.
Yeah, but again, I also think that is something that you would have needed to start years ago, because there's so many inmates. How do you go through them all?
And that's where we need to look at you know, prison reform, sentencing reform. We need to make sure that there's something we're looking at and working at in the legislature.
Yeah. All right, let's move to nationally now. So we've got your take on how Inslee has handled the state. How do you think President Trump is handling COVID-19?
In all honesty, I think the people that he has working it are doing.
I don't care about the people he has. Don't sidestep my question.
So my honest answer is I think President Trump needs to stay on script and work off of the things he's saying. Now, I understand that there are times where he's going to make an off-script comment. Governor Inslee does the same thing, but he needs to continue to give us the information. I like many people, this might cost me a couple votes. I don't care. When you're dealing with a national pandemic, you do not joke about injecting disinfectants or ingesting disinfectants. I don't care if it was sarcasm. I don't care if it was not actually said. That's not something we should be hearing. It's not something I should be looking at when I open up my Facebook feed. You're the leader of the free world. Please stay on script when it comes to a national pandemic.
Yeah, so you did say Inslee went off script, and Inslee has gone off script. But let's compare Inslee's off script. Inslee's off script was an hour and a half about a basketball game that did mean nothing for COVID-19. President Trump's off script was, like you mentioned, injecting what is it, hydrochloroquine. I mean, medical advice, period.
Mhm.
Just like Inslee's, where instead of him holding the press conference and discussing the charts today, he should have allowed who made the charts send their spokesperson and
And
discuss the charts.
that's my firm belief is that as the leader, as the one in charge, you start the press conference like, we've got some new information today. Today, I'd like to introduce you to such and such. They are the person in charge of this, and they're going to give you a briefing on the newest information and what we can do. I will be here to help field questions on where I'm going, where we're going from here, what we're doing on as policy standard after that. That's where it should be. That should be where it is nationally. That's where it should be locally, and that's where it needs to stay. Unfortunately, it's not what we're seeing.
Now I'm gonna put you back on the spot because again, I know you guys share the same letter. And trust me, I'm not necessarily trying to get people to vote against you or not. I don't know. I don't get a vote for you or against you. I'm not in your district. So it doesn't really affect me in that way. But what is your honest opinion on reading the president's meaning behind telling people to ingest, stick a black light up their bum, whatever like, was it sarcasm? Was it him trying to ask the question to the media to fool him? Because that was another excuse he gave.
In all honesty, I don't care what his reasoning for saying it was. I don't think it was the right thing to say, period. We share the letter. Yes, we do. But I believe wholeheartedly that just because you're in my party doesn't mean I can't disagree with you. And I disagree with him fully on this, that until the letters after your name are MD or PhD, and I understand that even MDs
slow
and
down on the
PhDs.
PhD. My wife can be one of those real soon. As a special ed teacher, mind you.
Yeah. And I thank her for that, by the way. I do thank her for that. But unless you're the ones in there going over the data, the only time you should be giving the suggestions of what medicine you should be taking is if
I'm constipated.
Yeah. It's
with
like,
his
hey,
words.
In all honesty, again, my job as
I have old tapes. We can go check them, buddy.
So, as a member of the Republican Party, as a citizen of the United States, my job is to not only support, but also to ensure that they're doing the right thing, the person who's in charge. And I believe his sayings on that were not the right thing. And he should have allowed the professionals who were with him or the professionals who have been with him to be the ones giving advice and not to even jokingly make suggestions like that.
Now, I don't want to stay too long on this because I do want to be able to get just your political views in general to allow whoever may watch this to base a legit opinion on whether or not they want to vote for you.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to give you that opportunity. But do you believe, because I believe, like you said, I believe Fauci should be the one talking. I believe, is it Burke? Is that her name? Dr. Burke?
I think so.
I believe Burke should be the one talking. I also believe they both fear for their job. And that if they speak certain truths that are legit truths, but they go against either things he has said into the microphone or things he has said behind a closed door, that they no longer have jobs. I mean, I guess that's just more of a blanket statement. I mean, do you believe that to be true?
I believe so. The old saying is I serve at the pleasure of the president. Did I say president or president? Because I really feel like I said that wrong. The old saying is I serve at the pleasure of the president. But unfortunately, I believe that they are fearful for their jobs. But I also feel that that's the case even if they're we're working for another president because this is a time of unknown, and they're still figuring everything out. But yes, I do feel like they might have a little bit more of a fear.
Pick any president in history. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like what the positions would be called, but Obama's big quote unquote claim to fame is Obamacare.
Yeah.
The health insurance, right? Let's say whatever the expert's title is for that, Obama says, this is what I want to do here. Listen to my expert on healthcare. And he came up and goes, it's a good idea, but it needs a lot of fixing. This just isn't going to work the way it's written. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you, in your honest opinion, expect the headline in the next day's paper to be Obama fires the expert?
No, but I expect to not see that person in front of a microphone again.
I'm not sure I do. George Bush, right? 9/11, his big claim to fame. Okay? If I'm trying to think who the general was at that time. Oh my goodness. Was it Mattis?
No, I don't think Mattis was a general at that time, but he wasn't the one. And I don't know, are you thinking of Petraeus?
Whoever was the only one that keeps popping in my head is Colin Powell and Schwarzkopf, and that's the first Gulf War. But
well, Powell was Secretary of State at that time, so.
But if whoever was the acting general at the Pentagon or whatever he is came up and said, Bush comes out and goes, we're going in guns a-blazing to Iraq, right? Which was where a lot of things get proven to be kind of fuddled with him. Was he went after things that didn't necessarily exist because he wanted Saddam more than what he told the American public. Okay, so he comes up and goes, yes, we were attacked. We need to go to war. We need Osama bin Laden. However, I don't think at this time Iraq's the place we need to go. We need to go to Afghanistan or Pakistan or whatever. I don't see Bush firing that guy the next day. And just speaking-wise and brain-wise and things that come out of people's mouths, Bush was probably close to one of the worst presidents, at least in our lifetime until now. And I'm not saying presidentially like the things he did, because I'll be honest, I voted for Bush twice. But some of the things that came out of Bush, it reminded me of Dan Quayle. A lot of things that came out of that man's mouth, you're just like, are you sure you have a college education? Like, I didn't know pot was still around in the 50s. Or had started yet, like what is coming out of your mouth? Those are just examples of not necessarily idiot politicians, but politicians that don't think before they speak. Right? Bush was one of the worst. However, one of the things I commend George Bush for, and I commend Obama, I commend Bill Clinton, I commend Ronald Reagan, who over time has proven that his presidency wasn't always the best either. I commend George H.W. was their ability to talk to the nation. I still, and I know the outcome. I know how everything happens. But if I go back to YouTube and watch George Bush speak on 9/11 and give the dead or alive speech, I still get goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like there was the country was on fire. And I know it was just the East Coast and 3 cities, but it felt like the country was on fire. And that speech came out, and you're just like, dude, I've hated you my entire life, but we are best friends today. Let's go. It felt that way.
Yeah.
Obama had the ability to bring people together with the way he spoke. Ronald Reagan, the tear down this wall speech was a defining moment of solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
George H.W. did really good during the Gulf crisis. I mean, Bill Clinton was another very good speaker. Impeached president, but a very good speaker. This is where the partisan line just disappears on these guys. And you're just like, okay, Tuesday, I didn't like what this guy was saying about gun control or abortion or whatever the case may be. Wednesday, where our world's turned upside down, And I'm following this guy because he leads.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we have that.
No, you're right in the aspect that those former presidents were amazing at what they did with their speeches that they could do. Bill Clinton was able to bring together a divided Congress and work well together. If you ask Newt Gingrich, he would disagree with that, but
Uncle Newt.
but yeah, but I think Ronald Reagan's was a very good speaker and was able to bring people together and give those ideas. Same thing with Bill Clinton. You're right. After the speech at Ground Zero, President Bush had some of the highest ratings a president ever had. President Obama was able to speak, and people could listen and hear his words and understand where he's coming from. Disagree or agree with him, you could still understand where he's coming from. And you're right. There are times where even now with President Trump, you can't get that all the time.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, Joe, I got ever.
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard him speak and go, I feel like his arms around me holding me. Like, I feel like we're ready to take this on. And I'll be honest, I don't feel that with Inslee. The way Inslee says Washingtonians is about enough for me to send him back to California. Okay, now let's get into District 47. What are we running on? Let's just start. Okay, a few things, just stereotypical Republican issues. Let's go that route. Gun control.
I'm not for gun control. I think my honest opinion is on gun control is that I'm not for it in general. The responsibility for your actions are what we need to be focused on that. We've discussed this before, you and I. My belief is that it's not the gun that commits the crime, it's the person that commits the crime. It's the tool that they're going to use. They could use any tool they want. That's just the one that they're using. I don't believe that we need limits on how many bullets you can hold in in the magazine. I don't believe that you should have I don't believe that there needs to be a rule that you can't have this type of gun because it looks scary. Because you can get a 22 Ruger bolt action that looks like a hunting rifle, and you can get one that looks like an AK-47, but it's still a 22 Ruger. My belief is anybody, but I also believe though that you should train with your weapon and be responsible. Don't just buy it to buy it. You should go and take classes if you want to, if you need to. I believe that even if you're introduced at a young age and you're learning from somebody who knows what they're doing, who's been there, who's been training with handguns or rifles for their entire life, but to be responsible. But I also believe that you should be responsible for yourselves in that. And you're right. We've talked about responsibility for ourselves, and that not everyone can be, but that's where I stand.
Okay, let's tackle this real quick.
I think we had a 45-minute conversation the last time we talked about this particular subject.
We'll go quick. Right, you nailed on the policing yourself. Okay, there's idiot people out there. People aren't necessarily idiots. There's idiot people out there. There's people that are going to do what they're going to do regardless of what anybody tells them. Okay, now you said the gun doesn't kill the person with the gun kills the person. Correct?
Correct.
That would be correct in saying the car doesn't kill the person or cause the accident. The person driving the car causes the accident. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. We have to get a car at 18 or at 16, we must take a state-certified driver's ed class. We must be educated. I was driving since 10 years old in hayfields out in farms. I knew how to drive a car. but I still had to go through driver's ed and take a test by a mandated certified government official at the time. I know now that you have a lot of independent, classes, but I still had to take this test to get my driver's license. So the state could feel safe with me owning a vehicle and using it responsibly. Now you're saying that you should just take it upon yourself to learn how to shoot a gun.
That's how I took it upon myself to learn. I learned at Boy Scout camp. I learned how to shoot a 22 rifle at Boy Scout camp. And then from there, I learned how to. I was 21. Granted, and my first Boy Scout camp was 21 years ago. So, times are different now. But we have to still take that responsibility for ourselves. Yes, not everyone chooses to drive, so they don't have to take the driver's ed class. Not everybody chooses to own a gun, so they don't need to worry about taking a training class about that.
But what I'm saying, I believe everybody should be able to own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with people owning a gun. I have a problem with people who are going out purchasing. Let's just say, too, the only gun you were ever trained on as a kid was a 22 rifle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You learned it in Boy Scouts. Tomorrow you wake up and go, I want an AR-15. You can't tell me it's not different. I know the kick.
The kick is different.
I know the recoil. I know the first time that you pull a trigger and 10 bullets come out instead of 1, it feels different. I've shot them. Like, you need different, you need an overall, because now when you do that, you step back and go, holy crap, let me figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
But that first shot, you're like, oh, I've shot a 22 before. I got this one, no problem.
Well, and that's the case though with anything. Is the first time you try it, you have to sit back and realize. The first time I shot a 45, I took my aim, I took my stance, and I took a shot. And then I realized this isn't the right way to fire this, and I had to readjust my grip. I had to readjust my stance, and that's how you learn, is by doing that. But I also believe that there are training classes that you can get. Now
you can, but you have to rely on yourself to go get it, right?
Yeah.
I think that it should be mandated that if you go in and buy a rifle, even if it's just an 8-hour Saturday class, right? Even if it's you go in and say, hey, I want this gun. Okay, we're doing rifle class Saturday. Okay? To teach you just the basics of how to stand, where to put your hands, right? Let's say that first time shooting a 44, something happened, whether, and you weren't prepared for it because you had never done it. It's possible. It happens all the time. It may not cause death. It may just be as bad as, your finger pinching in the chamber or, in the slide.
Mm-hmm.
But
that would not feel good, by the way.
No, it would suck bad. But if you had just that, even a 4-hour course, right? If you went through one gun course, we'll go back to the driving, right? You can go get your driver's license. But now if you want a bigger, more dangerous vehicle, like a semi-truck, you must go back and get a CDL license. You must learn how to control that bigger, more dangerous, powerful weapon. Or if you want something faster, like a motorcycle, you must go back and take a course to drive the faster, which would be more for like a semi-automatic. So if you took one general gun safety course, however long it may be, you take one general, and then when you went in and got a specialized gun, then you have to take an extra 4-hour course, whatever the case may be, to specifically learn that gun. You would be against that.
I'm for you taking the classes. I'm for the classes being offered. I'm for us ensuring that the people who are teaching these classes are certified by an organization, that they've done this, they continue to train, they continue to learn themselves. I do not believe that it should be a mandated course of action. We've already have one mandated, and that's your CPL to get a pistol. And the CPL does the background checks. Some people say it's not enough of a background check. It's running through the FBI system, and in Washington State, it runs through the state troopers as well. So,
but again, that doesn't teach you gun safety.
No, but it gives us an opportunity to understand maybe you're not supposed to be holding a gun.
I see idiots just carried in their waistband instead of in a holster.
Now, are we sure? You sure they're not using a holster that's inside their pants?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
I know people personally every day that carry it that way, or just in their pants pocket. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, at least if they took the course and they were dumb, different story. But I just think courses are needed. I also think using the Second Amendment to keep your guns is bogus. The purpose of the Second Amendment is to fight off a tyrannical government. Correct me if I'm wrong, but governments have drones, tanks, bombs, missiles, and you're out there with your AR-15. How'd it work for Waco?
So I hate using this example, but, you know, we go with Afghanistan. Let's use that as an example. These fighting off the Russians in the 80s. They turned it around after we gave weapons to the Afghanis to stop the Soviets. But they were fighting with AK-47s and shotguns and handguns and fighting off the Russians that way.
But did they win?
After we got involved, yes. But
what did we have?
We gave them tanks. Missiles, we gave them tanks and bombs, but they were fighting them off and they weren't losing, but they weren't winning at the same time.
Waco fought off for 17 days or whatever it was, with 9 people. Waco fought off too, and then they brought in a tank, and guess who lost? Waco.
I believe that the Second Amendment protects our rights to own and have guns. Some people want to go with it. It just says that, hey, it only allows for certain types. But if that's the case, then we can only put the same reasonings on the rest of the amendments.
See, I don't believe it holds off on certain types. But I believe if you're using the Second Amendment to keep your 22, it's a bogus argument. Now, if you went and bought yourself a drone that carried missiles and want to get behind the Second Amendment, I'm 100% for you. Because the only way that law works is if you are legally allowed to have the same thing the government who may turn tyrannical has. If not, it is a losing battle.
And that's where federal legislation would have to come into play. And that's where, at a state level, for the office I'm running in, and you're going to hate this answer. I can already see it in your face. You already hate this answer. It's not something we control because the Second Amendment is working for the national government. Whereas the 10th Amendment, where it states that if it's not listed in the Constitution or in these amendments, it's relegated to the states. And that's where we would come in and take action. And at a state level, we would go with the Second Amendment. And I know that there's been cases at the Supreme Court where Washington, D.C. and Chicago have some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, and they were banning the ability for you to own firearms. I know those cases were argued in the Supreme Court years ago. I didn't read what the final ones were, but I know that they went to the Supreme Court. But the Second Amendment allows you to maintain your right to bear arms.
But it's the reasoning behind the right to bear arms that's in the Constitution. Nowhere in the Second Amendment does it state it is your right to bear arms to keep it in your house and shoot your neighbor. Nowhere in the Second Amendment does it state it is your right to bear arms to kill Bambi and put it on a spit out in the yard and barbecue her.
But the right to bear arms allows you to be able to go out and do your
Tyrannical
hunting.
government. Nope. Tyrannical government is what it states. It doesn't allow you to hunt.
It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Doesn't say anything about tyrannical government. It says that you have the right to bear arms. Now, it says for a militia, but the militia part is how are you going to be able to train and form said militia to fight tyrannical government or go and fight for the government in the case of being in the Army, the Air Force, Navy, Marines.
But if
you don't have the right
hunting, each state wouldn't have their own hunting laws. If it was a law about hunting, you wouldn't have certain periods during the year where you can only hunt deer, or you can only hunt with a bow, or you can only hunt with, whatever. You can only hunt bucks, not does. You can only, it's not a hunting law based off of you talking about the 10th Amendment. That's why states are able to regulate that.
Again, this is an issue that you and I have differing opinions on. We've had differing opinions on, but hunting laws are right. You can't hunt this, you can't hunt that. It doesn't say what you can and can't use.
But if it was protected,
carry.
But if it was protected, yeah, but you can only hunt certain times of the year with a bow. You can't use your gun during X date, X date. I don't know the exact dates. I'm not a hunter.
Yeah. But those laws aren't talking about your right to carry. They're talking about your right to hunt an elk, to hunt a deer. Those laws aren't talking about you have the right to own a musket or you have the right to own an AR-15. That's not what those laws are saying. Those laws are saying that you cannot hunt this deer during this season of time. But then you open up hunting season, they start, I believe, in some areas, hunting season opens up sooner for bow hunters than it does for rifle hunters. The law says you can use your rifle at this time to hunt. It does not say you cannot own a rifle for hunting laws. Hunting laws are talking about when and where you can hunt. The Second Amendment says you have the right to own said rifle that you can go and then use to hunt.
Okay, so again, then why would it be bad to make sure every gun owner has proper training?
I don't think it's bad to have proper training. I think it's the right thing. I believe.
But why is it bad that the states to make it a law? We're not in an era where you have a lot of Boy Scouts anymore. There's too many cities. There's too many, these people are driving from Seattle 3 hours away to be able to go hunt or shoot their guns. We're not that way anymore.
So this is where
it's adapting.
So this is where I believe it should go, is that you have the right to own your weapon. We can agree to that. You have a right to own your weapon. But you also have, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to be irresponsible with said weapon. And I believe that if you listen to the radio, you'll hear, West Coast Armory in Bellevue offers classes for beginners, intermediate, and advanced shooters that you can take at different times during the year. They offer, ladies only classes. They offer introductory classes for teenagers. They offer introductory classes for adults. My goal would be to make those more readily available. Those should be the ones that we're doing, is we're opening up the business, the market, to ensure that they have the ability to go and get these classes. I believe that if you want to own a gun, if you want to express your Second Amendment right to have a weapon, that you also are in the right mind to go and take classes to learn how to use it responsibly. Whereas if you are buying a weapon you've never shot before, say, I've only ever fired rifles and I want to start shooting handguns, you're right, it's a completely different thing. That you have the right mind to go and say, I'm going to go and take a class that is teaching me how to use this.
But again, your faith in humanity. So back to the COVID. COVID happened, guns sold out everywhere. Walmart was gone. How many of those people do you think went and took a class? If I walk into Bear Arms, which is a gun store in your district, if I walk into Bear Arms and just go, hey, I've shot rifles my entire life. I want that one. He goes, okay. And I've never shot a rifle before. Like, how can he decide if I've been in sound mind?
And that's not
I'm
his
asking for
decision.
education.
And I believe that
you've gone political on me.
Yeah, I believe the gun store should be able to offer that education for you.
Offer
it should
it.
Be
Why isn't it mandatory?
You want to know the reason? And this is the non-political. This is the everyday, because it's not required by the Second Amendment, and there's nothing the states can do to change that. There's nothing they can.
They can.
It takes 30. It'll take 38 states to change that. You will not get 38 states to agree to change that.
How is it that I need a license for a car then?
Because the cars were not a part of the Constitution. You didn't need a license
Gun
for a horse and buggy.
Gun classes were a part of life when the Constitution was written.
No, but just about every home when the Constitution was written had a gun in their house, and they were training people to use them at all ages.
But they're not anymore.
And I believe they should.
I don't want guns taken away. I believe in people's ability to own a gun. I believe people need to be educated, and forcefully so, because as we've proven throughout this conversation so far, is as much as you want to trust humanity to do the right thing, it is more times than not, it is not going to happen. Right? A gun to the majority of people is a new toy. It is an adult toy per se, but it is a new toy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just your mindset. If you went today and bought a gun, and I understand you're going to want to come home, load it, go to the range, do whatever, and shoot right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hey, it's my new toy. I want to see how it works.
Yeah.
I get the mindset. However, it doesn't make it the best option.
No. My personal belief, and this is just me, if I'm going out and today and I were to go to Bear Arms, we'll use them as the example, and I bought myself a 45 Smith & Wesson. One of the first things I would do is learn how to properly maintain it, clean it, how to load the clip properly, how to put it in, how to take it out. And then how to make sure I could put it back together. And make sure I knew how to do all of that before I fired it, because I'm teaching myself about this new gun. That's what I would do. That's me.
But you are not.
I'm not everybody though.
Yeah,
but I would also be looking for the first classes I could take to make sure I'm using my weapon properly. But one of the first things I do before I did any of that, and this is me, is I would be looking for a safe way to store it first. And I would purchase the safe, or whether it be one of the small ones that you can get or one of the large ones you can get. I'd be looking for a safe to store it first, so that way I know I was storing it safely. But that's me. I'm not everybody, but there is a good amount of people who are thinking like I do. Now there are a lot of people who don't think that way, and we've seen evidence of that.
I'm gonna just throw a number out there, but you're maybe the 2%, maybe, and that's even coming from responsible gun owners. They're not doing all that research and all that safety stuff with a new gun if they've been shooting them forever. They're just not.
No. If they've been shooting forever, if I've been shooting for the last 30 years and I knew what I was doing, and I bought a new 45 to replace a 45, or just bought a new 45 because I wanted a new 45, and I already knew how this one worked, you're right, I wouldn't have to do that. But if it's my first time buying one, I'm giving that education myself.
If you walked into the gun store with your license, it says, hey, I already have this style of gun. Here you go. Boom. You walk out and get to shoot that day. If you go every 4 years, like a driver's license, 5 years, whatever, because guns are constantly changing. You and I know that. It's a technology piece of equipment. It is constantly changing. Right?
Yeah.
So, every 4 or 5 years, you go and have to take a refresher course or renew your license. It's to me, it's just common sense. You can't trust people to do the right thing. So the more you force, the more, just personal opinion.
Yeah.
All right. I want to give you an opportunity to just kind of let everybody know the rest of your campaign, what you're running on, ways people can back you to help out your campaign, things like that. Floor is yours.
So first, Matt, thanks for this. Thanks for the conversation. At least I know at the end of this, you and I will give each other some looks, but at the end of the day, we're still friends.
Absolutely.
But so what I'm running on is my basic things I'm running for are we need to be funding mental health and basic health in the state of Washington. We've increased our health funding. We've increased some mental health funding, but we need to increase it to the local levels, including the school districts. I'd like to see mental health funding happening in our local school districts, where Matt and I have had these discussions before, where people are seeing things that we've never seen before when it comes to the kids. There's aspects of the childhood that we were not experiencing when we were children. There's a stigma about seeing a mental health professional, and I'd like to see that erased. I'd like to be able to fund mental health where we can get each school district in the state the ability to either hire on or contract with mental health professionals and get them in the schools where they can provide mental health first aid training to the educators, to the administrative staff, where they can help figure out where students are at, and maybe recommend students to see said mental health professional, a drop in our rates of depression, a drop in our rates of teen suicide. Those are things I would like us to work to fund. I want to work on funding the basic health. Public health in this state is a problem that we've had. If go down Seattle, you see people living on the street with needing basic health care. And we want to work on homelessness, finding the correct solution, working with all of the agencies that are out there, not just certain ones, not picking agencies that can and can't help us. I want to take places faith-based, non-faith-based, people who have been working in homelessness camps to help get people back on their feet. I want to work with all of these people and come to solutions where we're working to ensure homelessness can actually go away. I want to work on our education funding. We all know the McCleary decision we put $4.5 billion more funding into education in 2018. We did that with the property tax. I want to be able to see where we can go and help certain areas of the state where they saw 80% increase in their property tax by lowering that, but finding the proper funding, ensuring that funding is secure and it can't be removed by any governor, and ensuring that the education system is in place to educate not just my kids, but everyone's kids. I would like us to work together. Like Matt said, I'm a city council member, and I am working across the aisle all the time. I will build those bridges to make sure that not just my ideas are being brought forward, but the ideas of others. Just if you have a good idea, I don't care if you have a D, an R, or nothing by your name. I'll work with you to make sure your good idea can be heard. If you want to reach me right now, the best way is Facebook. It's facebook.com/Cimaomo for legislature. Cimaomo is Cimaomo. I probably see it at the bottom of the recording there. But and you can reach out to me that way. If you'd like to donate to the campaign, right now the best way is through PayPal, and I can get you a link through there. Just send me a message on Facebook and I'll send you the link. The reason I say I'll send you the link is because there are certain information you have to give when you give a donation to a campaign that's required by state law. So that way they don't think I'm just making money in my basement, which is really easy to not do in my house because I do not have a basement. But in all honesty, it's about working together and building bridges in local government. And I'm not just talking about citywide or countywide. I'm talking statewide. State is still local because the things that we would do in Olympia will directly affect our neighbors in Covington, Auburn, Kent, Maple Valley, Snoqualmie, Yakima. It directly will affect us. And I want to be there to make sure that what we're doing is protecting the rights of our neighbors to live a healthy and happy life.
All right. Well, Joseph, sir, I appreciate you coming on and doing this. Like I said, it wasn't going to be easy. I wasn't going to let you just get away with things. With that being said, guys, this will be up on YouTube. You can check us out there. We are on Anchor.fm, sorry. This is the Renewers Podcast presents Table Talk. I've been your host, Matt Ginner. Again, I want to thank Joseph Cimaomo. Why do I keep forgetting the word? You're not a delegate. Help me out.
I'm a candidate for the Washington State House of Representatives.
For District 47. He's also a Covington City Council member. I appreciate you coming on. It's been fantastic to argue with you a little bit and get your thoughts and feelings. With that being said, guys, stay healthy out there and tune in next week. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, buddy. Hey, not bad. Not bad.
You're still recording.